Hello and welcome back to the show. So I am really excited to introduce my guest for today, Kimbrough Miller, who is the co-founder of Expectation Selling, a coaching program teaching real estate professionals how to have a better lifestyle while running their business and also building communication skill sets to build trust with their clients. So a little bit about my guest for today. So Jan is the co-founder of Expectation Selling, a coaching program, but she is also a successful real estate agent and team leader that leads the #1 Remax team in Mesa County, Colorado, which is also a top 100 Remax team in the US, all around the nation as well. So Jan knows, maybe just a thing or two about leading a real estate team and selling real estate as well. So in today's episode, she's going to be sharing with us some of her experience and skill sets and some of the things that she coaches her coaching clients on, which are communication skill sets, system building, and also having empathy in your sales skills, which is a little bit different than what most sales trainers are teaching real estate professionals here today. So Jan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and joining us here today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and kind of give a different spin on what it takes to be successful in real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've interviewed your business partner, Mason, as well on the show, and I'm going to be interviewing one of your other business partners as well. So, I really like kind of what you guys talk about in your coaching program with expectation selling. And I'm really interested to just kind of dig into, what you have to offer as well, which is your unique specialty in, sales communication and really building that authentic trust with your clients, which is very important in real estate. So before we get into that, I would love to get a little bit more of your background, and if you don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself and really just who you are and how'd you get started in real estate and what led you to where you are here today.
Okay, well, I'm going to try to make that really long story shorter. So, real estate is my second career, like a lot of realtors. I had 18 years or so in the medical field before. I had outpatient physical therapy clinics, uh, and so that was really where all my communication skills were built that we have brought into expectation selling. Um, so I did that for 18 or 20 years, and actually, one of our partners in expectation selling is my younger brother, and he got into real estate a little before I did and got overwhelmed with business, and he had no business experience. He had sales experience. So he called me and said, "Why don't you just sell all your stuff and come work with me and be my assistant?" which which yes, I thought that is the craziest thing I've ever heard, but it seemed like the right thing to do. So I did. I sold my medical stuff to my partners, and took a year or so to kind of get on board with Dave. And it was really this was the thing that made me realize kind of the unique part that I play in expectation selling is I am so not the typical salesperson because I was a helper person. I'm a medical person. My entire, emphasis is on helping people. So I really did not have any confidence that I could be do great in sales, but I was at this critical point in my life where I needed to make a change. And so I thought, well, I'm smart enough, I'll work hard enough, I'm going to try to make this happen. So I took a chance and got into real estate. So that was about 20 years ago, and many hundreds, maybe thousands of deals later, here I am.
Yeah. So that's a crazy story, having been very successful in one field, right? The medical field, and then
Yes.
transitioning into real estate, almost instantaneously, right? You mentioned you sold,
Yeah.
pretty much everything you
Yeah.
had and just jumped
Yes.
right in.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, right? So your transition to real estate, you mentioned you were more so in a mindset of not necessarily being the sales mindset, and then jumping into an industry where traditionally most people kind of approach it in a pretty more or less aggressive sales mindset, right? So was there a lot of, I guess trepidation or just kind of moving into this and trying to adjust to this new industry? What was that like? And how were you able to really kind of find your footing when you became, when you became a real estate agent
Mhm.
and started going out there to, prospect and generate new clients?
Right. Yes, there was a lot of trepidation in it because I had tried sales things before. I mean, mostly in college, Mary Kay makeup or whatever. It's like, oh no, I would just give it all away because I can't, felt bad. People didn't have money for it. So I just give it all away. So I really had not a lot of confidence. And I really pictured real estate salespeople being kind of the stereotypical salespeople, and I thought that's really so far outside my personality. And then we would go, we, meaning my brother and I, because he had changed from another career as well. We started going to a lot of coaching things, and truly the coaching, conferences and stuff would be like, have your clients come, sit in the living room, get them to sit in the furniture and kind of talk about, wow, this would be a beautiful place to have a glass of wine. Can you picture yourself and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is so not me. I couldn't not see myself doing those kinds of things. So basically out of the coaching, I took what worked, which was plenty, and I just discarded all that because I felt like I could not change my person to try who I was and how I am with people to try to make a sale. It just was not right to me. I couldn't do it. So that's where it's like in expectation selling, we do talk a lot about how you don't have to compromise who you are to be successful, because people do look for somebody who is honest and authentic, a direct communicator who works hard, who knows what they're doing, isn't afraid. You don't have to try to get somebody to do something that they otherwise wouldn't with some kind of slick verbiage, because that's never good. I mean, in the end, they'll end up not doing it because it's not where they want to be either. So, um, I did just realize that all of the communication skills that I had developed in the medical field were just this foundation to, I mean, actually kind of blowing past my peers who were using the cheesy sales techniques to sell, because people don't want that. You've heard the saying, people don't want to be sold. Well, they don't. They smell it a million miles away if your goal is to try to make your mortgage payment this month. So it was really all about focusing on genuinely, sincerely focusing on every single client. And then, the sales came and the money came.
Right. So, you mentioned there's a lot of people kind of going out there, and the coaching they're receiving in the real estate industry
Mhm.
is based on essentially, using slick verbiage or certain type of scripting when it's, trying to
Yes.
convince other people to do something they wouldn't, necessarily want to do. And that, I think, I absolutely agree, because I don't think that works, right? If somebody didn't want to do something, I don't think there's anything that you can say in order to get them to do something, especially in a transaction like real
Yeah.
estate, which is, it's not like you're just buying, a vacuum cleaner, right, for
Right.
$40,
Yes.
right? Where
Yeah.
you're basically trying to get the salesperson out of your door
Yes.
at that point.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's right. So a lot of the coaching was also, memorizing scripts, overcoming obstacles, anticipating what people were going to say, and then memorizing these things about what you're going to say. And again, that was just kind of that model is a really reactive model. You're memorizing a bunch of stuff and trying to anticipate what somebody's going to say, and then you're hoping like heck it's something that you're prepared to respond to. And it was a really reactive model of trying to interact with people and sell real estate. So expectation selling is really moving completely out of that reactive um, position and into a proactive position, with the goal of really it creates much more solid relationships much more quickly. So people do um, trust you. They understand you know what you're doing. They trust that you're on their agenda, not your own. and it provides systems that allow them to know what's happening ahead of time. So it really, expectation selling, the systems that we have built, really it gets rid of a lot of the chaos and the fire drills and all the stuff that's typically part of, you know, realtors think that that's just part of life. That's just something they're going to have to deal with. It's really not. This system really works to get rid of those, putting out fires and you know people's expectations that are not being met because no one ever articulated them, if that makes sense. So yeah, so the systems, um, really create a relationship that, otherwise is really difficult to create.
It absolutely does make sense because I think for, when I interviewed Mason as well, I think that's one of the big aspects he was talking about, which is, if the expectation of the client is not met, most of the time it's because it was not discussed upon
Yes,
before
yes,
entering into an agreement working with you as their real estate agent as well. So that upfront communication is so important. And it does go back to kind of how you approach a client when it's in the actual process of, whether or not they're still a lead or a prospect, and whether or not they're, wanting to work with you. Because if you're just saying anything to try
yeah,
to convince them to work with you, then when you're actually servicing that client and you're not able to meet those expectations, then that's when everything starts falling apart, right? You start being stressed out. The client starts, finding
mm,
fault in everything that you're doing. And, there's definitely no built in, relationship after the sale as well. So let's talk a little bit about, just the communication side of things, right?
yeah.
So what are some of the key skills and just the key concepts of having clear, upfront, and authentic communication that you like to practice, but also you like to coach other real estate agents on?
So that's really important because what we have found is most realtors really like relationships and they love being with people. What they don't always know is how to establish the firm foundation of a long lasting good business relationship. So for example, on all these years, I don't go to coffee with people, I don't go to lunch with clients, but I have all these repeat clients. Um, so it's agents. We've actually had agents on our team who they're afraid to ask hard questions like things about the finances. Have you ever had a bankruptcy? Have you ever had a foreclosure? Do you know what your credit score is? Um, whether it's financial things or sometimes it's things about their relationship. The buyers come to you and the typical thing is, oh yeah, what are your criteria? 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, what part of town? I mean, you're so embroiled in thinking of this, and then you try to hope that you can land on a house that fits for them. Agents don't know the questions to ask. And when they do, they're afraid sometimes to ask them. And so it is coaching them on all of those things. What questions to ask to get to the heart of whatever is going to make it most efficient to get them to the closing table. um, what are the questions and how do you ask them? Because really, the whole thing about the systems and relationship, how expectation works, is that you can close more, a whole lot more efficiently without working 24/7 if you follow these communication rules. So that is it, is teaching people how to ask some of the hard questions and not being afraid. We've had agents who are like, oh, I just feel like that's too personal to ask. But actually, when you ask from a position of confidence because you need to know in order to help them get to where they want to go, they trust you more. One, that you're not afraid of difficult things. And two, you do have a plan or a path that is going to help them get to where they want to go. You're not just going to, start looking at 20 houses, you're going to be planful.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I think a lot of agents do get caught up too. And I like that you brought up the two reasons why agents aren't communicating effectively. And that's, one is just they don't know what questions to ask. right? They
Mhm,
don't really know what it is that they need to get from the client and how they can actually go out there and service them with those answers as
mhm,
well. And then the second point of this, which I think, in my opinion, the majority of agents land in the second bucket is they know what to ask, right? They've heard it
mhm,
from either their broker, their team
mhm.
leader, the coach they hired, right? Or whether it's just,
Right.
video or content they've seen on the internet, they know what questions to ask, but they're just too afraid to ask them in client
Mhm,
interactions. And,
mhm.
I can talk about, why I think that is, but I would love to hear, what you've seen out there. Why do you think there are agents who are actually afraid to ask these questions when they absolutely know that they need to be asking these questions and they know what these questions are?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. One, they are afraid that the questions might be too personal and that they might lose the client if the client might walk away if they say, tell me about your finances. Have you had any bankruptcies or foreclosures? And I think they're afraid that that will feel too personal to people and the client will leave, which is actually the opposite of what happens. But that is one of the things. And two, I see that it's just kind of their own personal baggage of it's just their own personal baggage. When I started out, like I said, I'd never sold anything. I had no confidence in my ability to do that. So I recorded every single phone call I made. And I would get off the phone, I would listen to my tape, and I would realize, where my own, where I had missed the boat because of my own perceptions. Sometimes I'd have to call people back up and say, you know what? I got thinking about our conversation and I neglected to ask you something that was really important, and this is it. Um, because our own baggage kind of gets in the way of us doing the things that we need to do, and if you're not willing to really look at that, you'll never do anything different, you know so I think it's those two things, just being afraid of losing. It's the same thing with going out on a listing appointment. Somebody calls and they want to list their house, and they want you to come look at it, and the agent says, sure, what works for you. It's because they're afraid that if they put any parameters around when they can go actually look at the house, that they might lose that listing appointment or that listing opportunity. And it is rarely that way.
Right. And that's when the agents start getting into, such a reactive mode, right? When
Yes.
they're trying to run their business because it's always, what works for you, what's going to be, you know, what's the time that works for you, right? And then at that point, you have no
That's
control over your schedule. Everything just starts
yeah.
going haywire, and
Yeah.
then you're basically at the command of your client, and you can't even do the activities that are going to
Yeah.
get you new clients moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've kind of given up all of your yeah, you've given up your control out of the gate, when you have done that. So expectation selling is a lot around how do you ask these difficult questions? How do you set boundaries for how the transaction, the relationship are going to work? While at the same time instilling more confidence and building trust with that client. Because the things that agents are scared of never really happen. It's the opposite effect if you do it in a certain way. So, yeah. So
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, it's a paradoxical thing, that when you do the hard things or you set boundaries or you have an open dialogue about how things are going to work, people trust you more, not less, and they're highly unlikely to just walk away. So,
yeah. Yeah,
so
that's really interesting.
yeah,
The fact that literally the things that you're doing because you're afraid of a certain action is what's actually causing that to happen, right? The fact that you're
yeah,
not confident is
yeah.
actually causing you to, lose that client instead of the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so like I met with a couple not long ago who had come to me, and when I talked to them, they were like, I asked them if they had been looking at how they'd been seeing homes before, just to see if they had another realtor. Of course, they had another realtor. So then the questions were, okay, so what happened with that? What happened that you ended up coming here? Well, what happened was the prior agent had never asked the right questions, and so the agent kept basically, throwing the spit wad against the wall, trying to find something that they liked, but had never gotten to the questions of, why were they struggling to find a home and together. And the bottom line was, it ended up being that it wasn't about the houses at all. It was about the husband and wife relationship and what they wanted. Um, they never were free to say that they wanted different things. And so, if you never get to the bottom of, you know, how that relationship works, you're going to be showing them 50 houses and they'll never buy anything. Do you know what I mean? Because you've never gotten to the heart of what is it that you need? Where are the compromises? What are the deal breakers versus the compromises? So it's the hard stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of people, and this applies to real estate. This also applies to, personal relationships as well, where we just tend to try to avoid the
Yeah.
difficult conversations
Yeah.
that we know we need to have,
Yes.
and it just accumulates. I think at the end, if we don't have these conversations, into a blow up or something
Yeah.
much worse happening than if we just kind of took the took the
Mhm.
bullet, right? And just
Mhm.
had that conversation straight up and
Mhm.
gotten that out of the way so that we can move forward in a more constructive manner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a very positive thing. Mason can talk a lot about. He tends to be more conflict avoidant. I'm not very conflict avoidant, but I think a lot of people are, and that is part of the root of just why they can't just, you know, ask the right questions and set the boundaries so that it eliminates the chaos. So not only, I mean, it eliminates the chaos of the transaction for, I mean, probably 95% of the chaos agents experience every single day that they think is unavoidable. It is avoidable. It is avoidable if you know how to present this stuff. Um, yeah, it really does make a huge difference, which is all about how expectation selling is set up to teach people, what are the questions? How do you ask them? How do you know when to ask them? And then provide a structure and systems for getting them from A to Z with no wrinkles. I mean, if you think about it, we all know, if you've done any number of deals, it's the different players, but it's the same crises every time, and all you have to do is have those conversations ahead of time and in certain ways, and plant some seeds sometimes for people to be processing things subconsciously ahead of time, so that when the thing actually crops up, it's not a big deal. So if it's like, sorry, am I talking too much?
No, God.
Okay. So if it's like, let's say, you're listing a house and the roof is old, but that seller's not going to replace it. They don't want to spend another penny, or they don't have any more money. It's okay. It's just like, hey, well, this is something that we know. So we just need to plan for what's going to happen on the inspection, because somebody's probably going to call it out. So great if they don't and we can skate by, but if they do, here's some things to be thinking about. These will be options for us. So that then when the inspection actually happens, that seller's already thought about, okay, what are we going to do with this roof thing? Okay, I'm willing to split the roof. I'm willing to give a credit. I'm willing to give a warranty. As opposed to the agent knowing the roof is bad, but not wanting to tell them that they're going to have this roof problem for fear they'll pick a different agent. And then it's a big blow up when the inspection comes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you see this happening all the time, right? You see this
Yeah.
happening with different agents. and different clients. And I think the root, like a lot of times, I think the root of the problem is most agents are so, I guess, desperate for clients and for deals that
Mhm.
they're so afraid of any little thing going bad that
Mhm.
they avoid even, like you mentioned in this example that you just gave, it had nothing to do with the agent themselves, right?
Right.
But they're afraid that bringing up that problem could cause the client to go out there and find a new agent. So is that something you guys address a lot of as well with, other real estate agents that you guys are coaching or also in your own business? Is that if you have, you know, a full pipeline, if you have a full pipeline of clients that you can keep going back to, that you can keep,
Mhm.
expanding, then you will never feel like you're desperate to land a specific client at a specific time. Because I think just the nature of this business, nature of this industry, you mentioned that people are desperate to pay their mortgage, right? And sometimes that can
Mhm.
cause us to do things
Yeah.
that we know we're not supposed to do, but we're
Yeah.
in this mindset of we
Uh-huh.
got to get this done.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, I mean, we've all been there. I mean, I did real estate in the last bust. I you know, I became an expert at HUD homes and foreclosures and short sales. So we've all, been there where it's like, "Oh my gosh, this market is difficult and tight." But the thing that we know we're because, Dave and I have been in the business 18 to 22 years. Mason also with us. I forget how many years he's been in it, but we've lived through all kinds of different markets. And so the communication and skill set of expectation selling, it doesn't matter the market. It works in all of the markets because people all need, I mean, yeah, they all need the authenticity. They all need honesty, directness, need to know a plan, how we're going to get there, what are the apparent pitfalls. So this skill set that we teach, um, it works in all markets, and it should help agents through those times where it's tempting to, I just need to get my mortgage paid. I'll do absolutely anything. You know what I mean? I'll say whatever I have to say. I'll do whatever I have to do. It's like, because you still have to have this core boundary, or your life is just doing nothing but catering to all of these people's expectations. And you'll end up having no life for yourself. I mean, on my deathbed, it's like I'm not going to look back and think, I wish I'd sold one more building or house or done one more deal. I want to have time for the things that are truly important in life. And if I'm being the stereotypical agent, you know, uh, that can't put my cell phone down, um, I'm not going to be able to prioritize my life the way that I need to. But I don't want to back my business down. I like doing volume. I like doing a lot of business, and that's how expectation selling, the skill set allows people to scale down or up. So like Mason likes to work 15 or 20 hours a week and support his family, and I like to work a lot, and it just lets me get more done in the normal amount of time.
Yeah, I think the other important part of that is, being willing to walk away, right? There's
Of course. Yep.
there's so many agents that are not willing to walk away either from a
Yeah.
client or a deal that it really, I think, it eats away at them. The more they do it longer into their career, the more it makes
Yes.
them easier to burn out, more stressed, more anxious as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I say a lot of times that agents are our own worst enemies because um, agents buy into that stereotype of what does it look like to be a realtor. It looks like 24/7 I'm on vacation on the beach answering my phone, and it's like that is what they buy into. And so if you buy into that, um and that's what you accept, yeah, then that's what you're going to get. And you're right. They don't have either the knowledge to be able to set their own boundaries, or they're just not willing to walk away. I mean, there's some clients that you just don't want, no matter if you need to pay your mortgage, there's still some clients that you just don't want.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I think that's what separates what you guys are teaching
yeah.
versus the majority of coaching programs out there, which is just basically you need to do this and do this and do that in order to get to a certain volume, right? Which, I mean,
Yeah.
for some agents, I think, possibly that could be helpful for them at a certain point in their careers, maybe in the beginning as they're just trying to
Yeah.
build up. But at a certain point, you have to look at your business as a whole and see, what does this look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years? Am I going to be working this hard? Am I going to be working twice as hard?
Yeah.
Right. And do I have an option to potentially exit if I chose to do that? And for a lot of agents, I think that answer is no. And I'm sure you guys have seen that in the industry too, and that's one of the reasons why you came up with expectation selling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important for us. So, the three of us, Dave, my brother, myself, and Mason, all being at different life stages. Um, One of the beautiful things about the system is that, like I said, it lets you scale your business up or down, but it also applies to no matter where you are in kind of that work or business or personal life cycle. It's all, and that's where it's like we have really specifically set out to. We don't want to be um, something where agents keep having to spend money to get more, buy more things or whatever. It's kind of like it's not like buying Zillow leads or doing the endless coaching where you just end up keep paying more, buying more. Our goal is to teach people this skill set, with basically one fail swoop that will apply for the rest of their business and personal life. I mean, they won't have to keep purchasing because these are basically life and business skill set that transcends markets and time and ages. So that's kind of the goal, is to give them tools that they will be forever better, whether or not they ever do anything again with expectation selling or not.
Right. And that's kind of what I gathered a lot from my interview with Mason as well, is that these are skill sets that people need, not just in real estate, not just as an
Yeah.
agent, but these are skill sets that are very beneficial in your personal lives, in your
Yeah.
relationships. You want to take this, and maybe go into a different industry. Maybe, we've seen
Yes.
this, a lot of agents go into coaching themselves. These are skill sets that you can use with whatever it is that you're doing. And I think
Right.
that's really a really powerful program that you guys have put together. Now, something else that I really kind of want to get your take on was empathy, right? I think
Mhm.
empathy is so important when it comes to just it's part of this whole being a good communicator, being able to talk on different difficult issues and
Mhm.
keep moving forward with the relationships, right? Whether business or
Mhm.
personal in your life.
Yeah.
So what would you define empathy as? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who either don't have the right definition, or they don't really get it, or they think that having empathy is slowing them down in a certain way, and kind of dragging their feet. So I would love for you to be able to share kind of your definition of it and how you see it playing out in client relationships in your real estate business.
Well, really, what I believe empathy is being able to to understand another person's position and needs well enough that you can put yourself in their shoes and understand that. And then if you do have that level of empathy, it allows you to put your own personal agenda or needs or mortgage payments or whatever aside so that you can focus on how are you going to get them from where they are to where they want to be, regardless of where you need to be. So it's really that, and that takes the communication skills we've talked about, and it takes being able to just focus and listen well to them, instead of thinking of what's the next thing I'm going to say, what's the next thing I'm going to do, how ready are these guys, do I think I can pound this thing out in 6 weeks. It's getting off of all of that, the thinking that you do for yourself that's your own agenda, and really trying to understand where they're coming from and how you are going to get them where they want to go.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a big part that a lot of people are missing as well, and it's difficult to do because when we're in, as part of that relationship, right? So like
Hmm.
you as the agent and the client,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
A lot of times, because there's things that are tied to our own our own agenda, our own benefit or
Right.
loss, really difficult to step out and kind of look
Mhm.
at things from a third party.
Yeah.
But once you start doing that, right, I think we've seen this all the time where, if you as a as an individual, you're kind of looking at two people interacting, and then you come up with like the best solution, right, to whatever conflict that they're having. But then
Yes.
tomorrow you have the exact same conflict, and you can't seem to get out of it.
Right.
Just the only difference is
Yes.
because you're involved in it. So I
Right.
think that's so important. And one of the things that I would say is, having space to make these decisions,
Yeah.
right? Having maybe a little bit of time to be able to remove yourself from the situation. I think that really helps. And it really helps, real estate agents, individuals develop more empathy in their day-to-day communications, whether if it's with clients or with, their personal relationships as well.
Yeah. I mean, you'll definitely help people get where they want to go quicker, which is usually to a closing. You'll help them get there more quickly if you can put your agenda aside and focus on them. What is it that they need, both as individuals and together? Because sometimes that's also where you, as the agent, get clarity. Like I had one couple. It's like it became clear after my initial intake these people were headed for a divorce. They were not never going to get together in the house because that's not where they were. You know what I mean? They were trying to get to a house because they were hoping one more thing like that would help them stay together. But I mean, it was fairly quick asking the right questions and having the right conversations that it became clear it wasn't going to that. I mean, buying a house wasn't going to be their thing. I could have showed them 30 houses and them figure it out. I mean, I didn't tell them, hey, I think you guys are headed for a divorce. But I mean, you don't say that, but it's like it can certainly help you wean and sort, you know, okay, I understand where they are. I can help them get where they want to be, or this is going to be this is going to be too difficult, or this is one I don't want to take on.
Yeah. So knowing that will help, right? Because now you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting their time,
Yes.
right, as an agent. And just getting to that point, because I do think a lot of agents come from the best of intentions as well, and they feel like they can and should help everybody that comes across their table too. And sometimes, in this scenario, just a good example of that, that's just not the case, right? There's some situations where you just can't, even as a real estate professional, help the other party, and you have to be willing to let them know that in the the most gentle way possible, but let them know that so nobody's wasting anybody's time, and that you can really just move forward to either you as the agent to the next client, but for the individual themselves or the family,
Yeah.
for them to start figuring out what their next steps are going to be as well.
Well, it's pretty simple when you figure out what you need to do to not make it about them and just say, you know what, I can appreciate your situation. And after hearing what all you need, I don't think I am going to be the right fit for you. So let me give you the names of three other agents that I feel like would be a good fit for you. So then they're not abandoned. I didn't doom their relationship, but it's like they feel like I was willing to give up business for their benefit. And that's a win-win.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can always refer them, right? That's the other
Yes.
other part of
That's right.
being.
It's like, yes, I can refer them. And maybe somebody else will, be more successful with them than I would have been. But it's like that's when it's like, no, I see how this is going to go. I'm not the right fit. So
Absolutely. Yep. So, Jan, I just wanted to say thank you for being on the show today. I think you were able to share a ton of value with us, and really just be able to share what real estate agents needs to be looking for when it comes to client communications, setting clear expectations, but also not just with other people, but with themselves as well, and
yeah.
knowing that sometimes walking away is going to be the best option for everybody involved. So, for our listeners out there that are watching this or listening to this, that want to learn a little bit more about what you guys do at Expectation Selling, maybe they want to take part in one of your coaching programs, what are some of the best ways for people to either reach out to you guys directly or to get more information on what it is that you guys do?
Great. They can appreciate that. They can go to our website, expectationselling.com. If they want a little taste of kind of some of the skills we're talking about, we've taken like what we feel like are the three biggest time sucks for agents and solved those in a systematic way for them. And so there's they can go to expectationselling.com/discount. And there's like a 30% disc. It's like $30 it ends up being for a little thing to help the agents who are listening here get a taste of what these systems are about and how much time they can save with these systems. So expectationselling.com.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to leave the link in the description in
Thank
the
you.
show notes down below so that people can find that information. And yeah, guys, make sure to go check out expectationselling.com if you guys want to learn a little bit more about what it is that you guys can learn when it comes to going out there and really building a business where you can scale up, scale down, and actually, have your life back, right? Which, as a real estate
Yeah.
agent, as we all know in this industry, is very rare, but luckily there's programs like expectation selling that is helping people with that as well. So Jan, I want to thank you again for being on the show today. Before we let you sign off, is there any last pieces of advice, any last tips you'd like to leave with the audience here before we let you go today?
Well, I think yeah, I think the tip is to do something like this. If it's not us, that's fine. But spend some money and get some coaching or advice or invest in a system like this because this is 45 years of experience that we have brought to the table. So if somebody can save 45 years of all of our learning across vast volumes of business and kind of get a head start, it's worth it. It's worth a little bit of money that you're going to spend to get that head start. So I would say invest in it. Don't cheap out on the things that might really make a difference in your business.
Oh, absolutely. That's some great advice. So thank you so much, Jan, for being on the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next show. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.